Welcome to the Ascension Academy podcast, where we talk about all things related to healing, spirituality, and the ascension on planet Earth. I am your host, Lauren Denny. In today's episode, we will be doing a deep dive into the E.T. race called the YahYels. The YahYels are one of the E.T. races that is primed and ready to have first contact with humans on Earth. And in fact, one of my colleagues met a YahYel woman in person from the Galactic Federation this October 2024, which is what sparked this episode for me. And in order to understand the YahYels, we're going to get some background on the human gray hybrid program, which resulted in the creation of several races, including the YahYels. So, in this episode, we'll have two parts. Part one will be about the human gray hybrid program. And then in the second half, we'll move into spotlighting the YahYel race specifically. And I am honored to have Beth Ward back on the show. Beth Ward is a professional ET channeler, and she has had ET contact her entire life, and that includes several in person, on Earth contact experiences too. And this is now our third episode together. So thank you, Beth, for your willingness to come on and share your expertise and chat and talk about all things related to E.T.s. And so I'm really excited to have Beth on the show today to talk about the hybrid program and the YahYels. And again, this just comes in the midst of Earth entering the time of open contact and public disclosure about E.T.s. So welcome, Beth.
Thanks, Lauren. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be here with you and have these discussions. So it's a treat for me as well.
Wonderful. Happy to have you back.
Thank you.
So where would you like to get started today? Because I had reached out to say, would you like to talk about the YahYels? And you said, well, first we should understand, get a little background about this hybrid program, and it will help us understand the YahYels better.
Yeah, I think so, because people either think consciously or sense intuitively our connection to the YahYel. And so I think having a little history about why that is, and why we have so many YahYel channels, I think probably that's, in my canvassing, the highest amount of ET channelings are YahYel
Okay.
connections. And so, and they're likely going to be the ones we meet up with in first contact or in the mix of that. So I think
Wonderful.
understanding a little bit of the background can help understand their society a little bit more.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
So should we get started with the hybrid program?
Yeah. So again, these are my understandings through channelings and through hearing other people's channelings and sort of discerning vibrationally if that feels like a fit for my reality. But a disclaimer, we all have our own reality. So if what I say doesn't feel true to you in the audience, then just leave it there, take what feels right, and leave the rest. And I'm sure once we meet up with the YahYels, I'll find out that most of what I said wasn't quite accurate.
They'll be
And
able to
laugh and have fun and find out really what happened.
Sure, yeah.
So to my knowledge, now I just want to acknowledge everything is in the now moment. Everything is in the now moment. But if we look from a linear perspective, in our reality perspective, there are many timelines. Infinite, goes on and on and on. And so on a different timeline of humans, not our timeline, but some, I don't know how far away, we have some humans that went really into the mental space to the extreme degree. So what I mean by that is they got really smart quickly and valued technology and science and specialization And they sort of these other humans, I'm going to call them, on this other timeline, kind of took a left turn when they got to about our point of development. And they got super smart, and they started building all kinds of technology we can't even imagine. And as the more they got going on this path, the more they realized they could get more smart, the more they shut down their heart chakras. So their mental space would expand if they contracted their heart space. And
Wow.
so they continued to do this over and over. They started cloning their species. I'm sure they did lots of things we don't know. This is over thousands of years. They eventually destroyed the surface of their earth, went to live underground. Over time, mutated to that environment. Also, through their cloning, they would make mutations to live better underground. And they eventually made synthetic bodies. Again, because they could manipulate what was going on. They became masters of timeline manipulation and understanding time in general. And eventually they hit a dead end and they couldn't reproduce anymore, and they were facing extinction. So these other humans are the grays that everyone refers to, has bumper stickers of,
Yeah.
wears on a hat,
Yeah.
right? These are the grays, okay, that
Mhm.
we are familiar with. And they in their timeline, because they didn't want to become extinct, they and at this point, they're beyond, they have big heads, big
Because
brains.
they brought so much energy up to their
Yeah,
mental brain, right? So.
yeah. And then they have tiny bodies, really
Mhm.
thin, right?
Mhm.
It was all about the thinking and the mental space. And they were very evolved in that respect.
Mhm.
They got so evolved that they shut their heart space down completely and did not have emotions at all.
Oh my.
Again, to expand the mental space. So but they didn't want to die out. They wanted to keep playing this incarnation game. And so they reached out to higher dimensionals and said, what's going on here? And the higher dimensionals explained to them that because they shut their heart chakra down, they basically hit a dead end in evolution, that you have
Mhm.
to evolve. Your consciousness can't evolve if you are not evolving all your energetic centers together.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
can't get rid of one for the other. And humans in general, I think a lot, there's a lot of different types of humans in the universe and
Mhm.
other higher vibrations, but it's my understanding that our kind of human evolves through the heart space. Like
Mm.
that, we don't get rid of the mind, but our big center is the heart space. Well, they tried to make that the mental space, and it didn't work. And so they said they could create a hybrid program, and because they were masters of timeline manipulation, get some fresher DNA from other earlier humans that didn't
Wow.
go down this road,
Wow.
mix it with theirs, and do this energetic and physical changing to create an energetic change to open their heart space back up. And so we have the beginning of the hybrid program that some people have heard of, some people are afraid of, or have nightmares about because they feel like they participated in nightmare situations. So I have worked with the hybrid program since I was a baby. And I've been hanging out with the Grays my whole life. But a lot of people don't feel like they're their BFFs like I do. And here's why. So they start the hybrid program, and it's new. They don't, this is a new thing for them. They've never done it before. They are getting some help, but they start out on their own. Um, and they don't have any emotions. So what do? They come to many timelines of humans at kind of our stage, including our human timeline, so us, but also some others. And they work with individuals, get DNA to make hybrids. Well, some people, maybe I should wait. I'm going to talk about people's negative experiences in a minute. Let's first talk about like what physically happened, and then we'll get into people's perception of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so they start doing this, and they the first they eventually create what would be 5 hybrid creations, but we'll end up with 7 hybrid races by the time it's all done.
Hmm.
7 is a significant number. Our universe is based on sevens. Everything is in an octave of sevens. So I was not surprised to learn we have 7 races
Sure. Makes
and
sense.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
in this process. Okay, so when I just want to explain why they hit a dead end, because this relates to a lot of things out in the spiritual community. The reason why they hit a dead end and couldn't recreate or reproduce their bodies were dying. They couldn't bring in incarnate more souls to incarnate because it became so limited.
Hmm.
So it was so highly focused.
Hmm.
Their species, it wasn't a hive mind, but it operated like a hive mind. Like it was
Hmm.
so insular, and everyone looked the same. Everyone specialized in their role, which was almost the same. We're talking like teeny tiny differences,
Wow.
not like us who are all over and we have so
Yeah.
much diversity, right? It's the opposite of us. And so an incarnation didn't provide enough content and contrast
Hmm.
and variety to really create consciousness expansion.
Hmm.
And they couldn't expand their consciousness because their heart space was shut down. So that's why their body was dying. So
Hmm.
that's why they hit an evolutionary dead end. And I point this out because a lot of people new to E.T.s think it's about getting in touch with their neighbors with really cool outer technology.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
When really what this is about for us humans, is expanding our consciousness and turning on our inner technology. We are humans, have technology inside of us that surpasses what we'll make outside of us.
Hmm. Thank
And
you for clarifying that, because that's definitely, you've helped bring in that perspective for me too. Because as I've been getting to know all these different ETs, for me, it's been the last 3 years. There was a point where I put them on a pedestal and thought they were so amazing because they have all these technologies and they're so cool. It's like, I just want to meet my neighbors, which is also very exciting, and it's fascinating and wonderful. And I'm excited to meet them. But I love how you've helped me to reframe it and bring it back to, this is my own inner journey. This is my ascension process. And any technology they have, we have inside. Our natural biological technologies come first. And they, like even ships, for example, like I know being able to travel and move throughout the cosmos, we can do that with our own bodies too. And a ship is just designed around what's already naturally created. So I just wanted to say I totally agree with you.
yeah, yeah, we think sort of evolving, originally before we got closer to open contact, was about evolving the outer world. And we're learning that it's about involving internally. And
Hmm.
that this is about the expansion of consciousness, not the expansion of tools.
Yeah.
And our humans can only expand through the heart space.
Is
And
that specific to Earth?
it's, well, I don't know how many humans and versions of Earthlings, but it is us, like our
Yeah.
species. It is true. And we evolve consciously through that. We don't do it by dying I mean, you can
Hmm.
die and come back at a higher frequency in another incarnation, but we can do it consciously, which is what we're all doing on the planet right now.
Hmm.
And so that's why we were chosen, because we have that gift. And it was the opposite, the balancing to what these other human grays had going on.
Hmm.
And so, another reason why we were selected as a species for the hybrid program is because, now this is going to sound a little science fictiony, but it's my understanding that the Greys who are working on the hybrid project, they reached out to human counterparts. So we have to stop back for a minute and think,
Right. What's a counterpart?
what's
Yeah.
the counterpart? So if everything really happens in the now, all your other lives on Earth, other planets, other incarnation cycles, it's all in the now. And
Hmm.
so it's my understanding, your soul and higher self expresses into many forms in your physical reality on the physical plane. And that includes what you would consider E.T.s on other planets, right? And so as we move into ascension, that's going back into wholeness, where it goes from fragmenting out to coming back into wholeness. And so as we're coming back into wholeness, people are starting to get in touch with other aspects of their soul, which I'm calling a counterpart.
Hmm.
So I've met my counterpart. I think I've met all my counterparts. Well, I guess I don't have any way of knowing, but on 12 dimensions. And I have met my gray counterpart
Have
recently,
you have you met them in person or just through channeling?
just through channeling.
Hmm.
And when I met my gray counterpart of this grays that we're talking about, the grays,
Yeah.
um, I could feel how crunched and restricted and limiting it was. If we talk, a lot of ETs call us masters of limitation, but this is a kind of limitation that like blew my mind. Like, it
Wow.
was so focused. I didn't
Wow.
like it. It made me feel suffocated.
Yeah.
And but then I relaxed for a minute as I was connecting with this aspect of me, this gray, and it was a female gray, and I think I was probably connecting with her after this whole thing, like the version of her after ascension, after they're
Mm.
done being physical. I think the
Mm.
physicality that I saw was linear speaking old, like
I see.
when that being was in form. But it was, wow. It like, I just don't have any words to explain how tight and how much limitation was applied to that existence.
Hmm. So I know even like the ETs that I'm meeting now, so they're at a higher frequency, most of them are at a higher frequency than we are at. And so for them to come down, even for them, it's like a squeezing, like
Yeah, crunching down, right? Yeah.
yeah, their vibration, it's a slowing down, a squeezing down, and it can feel very claustrophobic, very uncomfortable to kind of condense in. So I can imagine what you're saying, experiencing what it was like for the Greys, even more just dense and tight.
Yeah. And if you picture, you're really source and you're really light. So to bring all of that and crunch it into this tiny thing, right, is hard anyway. And then you crunch
Yeah.
it even more.
Yeah.
It's quite a crunching.
Yes.
And so they picked us because I think they were like, okay, where's my human counterpart? What timeline?
Mm,
I think they picked people who kind of specialize in their heart space and really turn that on pretty quickly.
mhm,
I think that has something to do with it. And I think they tapped into the timelines like right about our now, when we really are at this point of growing. Are we going to grow emotionally? Are we going to grow mentally? Is it going to be about technology? Is it going to be about relationships? We're like at this precipice, and that's, I
mhm,
think, where they tapped
mhm.
in. And again, I think this is probably like DNA, but I don't really know. Maybe my sense is it would be energetic DNA.
Energetic DNA, not
Yeah.
physical.
Yeah. But I think our brains interpret it as what we are familiar with. So we think of it as being physical DNA.
Yeah.
Um, my sense is a lot of the work was done in the astral realm energetically, but I think our brains say, and maybe they did pick up people physically and take them places. I'm sure they did.
Mhm.
But I think also a lot of it happened in the astral realm.
I see.
And I remember as a kid them being in my room and coming to me, but then I don't remember what we did. So I think then I went into the astral. And
Mhm.
and even though I was like a baby and a kid, you aren't that in the astral. You can be whatever you want.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So it didn't matter.
So I know you said, and I don't want to veer off, but I know you said you were involved with the Grays and the hybrid program even as a baby. Were they physically came into your room and then took you into the astral realm?
Yes, that's how I remember it.
Yeah.
And I used to draw pictures of them coming in
Wow.
ships and into my room. All over, my whole room was covered with these pictures.
What did your parents say?
Uh,
Why is she drawing all these ships and aliens?
I had a crazy childhood, so they weren't really tapped into what I was doing and what my needs were.
What's little
But
Beth doing?
yeah,
Yeah.
but my mom did remember. I was talking to her a couple of years ago, and she said, "Remember how you used to tell me to just wait with you in the middle of the night, and these little green gray men were going to come get you, and I could come with you if I just waited with you in your bedroom." So one time I did, and then they never came, and you were so mad. And I don't remember that, but that's her
Sure.
memory.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
did they visit you on multiple occasions? Like they'd
Oh, like
physically come to
hundreds.
your room
Yes.
hundreds of time and then
Yeah.
take you off in the astral
Yes.
to do some sort what do you remember? Do you have memories? Were they taking your
No,
DNA?
and it felt like a group project. It felt like I was helping do the project, like as an adult, even though I was a kid. Like it felt
Yeah.
like we were on a team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating. So
Yeah. It
you
didn't
weren't
feel like, it felt like my friends were like, hey, come
Mhm.
on, let's work on our stuff. And so we went.
And you were never scared of them.
No,
Yeah.
never.
And
I
at
love,
that you
yeah.
loved them. And you said at that point it wasn't the very beginnings where they had no emotions. They were a little bit more evolved by the time they'd come to you.
I don't know.
Okay. But for whatever reason, there was no fear, no
Correct.
negative
And
experiences
I
with.
came in pretty awake into my incarnation. So I didn't go through the why am I here and what's happening and what's happening on
Mm-hmm.
the meta level. I always knew that. So
Yeah.
that's probably part of it. I mean, I probably like, let's start our work right when I
You
get
knew
there.
this was your work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
as a baby.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I
So
know it
cute.
puts new light on your incarnation, right? Like
Yeah.
the physical aspect of your incarnation.
Wow. Yeah, I'm a baby. Let's get to work with these grays coming in my room. Let's see
Yeah. Like
what
I'm
I can
here
do.
now. I'm here now. Let's go.
Yep, let's go. I got born. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so let me see if I said what I wanted to say about that. And then I think the other people that they selected also were people who wanted to be part of the project.
Mhm.
It tends to follow, a lot of people have said this, and this is my truth. It tends to follow family lines. So, like a grandmother or mother, daughter, granddaughter.
Mhm.
And that is the case for me. Even though my mom doesn't participate consciously in anything, I did ask the YahYel, was she part of the project? And they were hesitant to answer me at first. And then as I kept asking, they said, technically, yes, but you do not talk to her, do not try to do anything. She has
Mhm.
made other decisions once she was in her incarnation. So you
Mhm.
just let
Mhm.
that be. But my kids also hook up with the YahYel. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's common. I'm sure that's a genetic thing.
Sure, yeah, through
Yeah. And
genetics.
then, so let's go to the negative experiences. So I just want to really honor the fact that people have had literally nightmare, worst trauma ever experiences, being taken by grays, being held against their wishes, having physical things done to them. These are real experiences, and everybody wasn't a BFF of the Greys like me. I've asked, because I've had the experience I've asked about this just in an effort to help,
Mhm.
because people have had such a different experience. And I think we want to just acknowledge a few things. The first is, like you said, the Greys started the project without emotion. So that means they didn't have empathy or compassion. They also didn't have fear. So they
Mhm.
didn't know we would be afraid.
Yeah,
And so that, for some people, resulted in trauma, because also not everybody remembered that's what they signed up for.
sure.
So before you incarnate, you make lots of plans with lots of people and other beings, and a lot is going into your incarnation template. And then you get here and you have free will and everything, you either remember or you don't, you either want to or you don't want to, and so on. And so um, I think that once the people who didn't remember, who experienced, read the scene as high trauma,
Sure.
the Greys realized this, like it wasn't going very well in the beginning. And so they reached out to higher dimensional beings for help again. And that's why
Mhm.
you'll hear a lot of people tell stories of being taken by the Greys, but there's also, or them coming into their room, but there's also a mantis being, there's a little gray robot,
Mhm.
sometimes other beings.
They were getting assistance at that point.
Yes, to help. So it wasn't so traumatizing. Um, and so that's why you have lots of those memories from people. And then another thing I just want to acknowledge is that humans, now I'm going to go to the meta level here. Humans, part of the incarnation experience is working with energetic patterns. So when you're on the astral realm, you're like, oh, I want to work with that energetic pattern. I want to work with that in form. And so we do this by playing with story structure. And I think a lot of species in our galaxy use story structure to learn and grow. And
Mhm.
so we use storylines, our perceptions, our storylines. This happened, that happened. It was good, it was bad, it
Mhm.
was right, it was wrong. To explore and grow from. And so we do this in many different ways. So we might have, I had a very dark, abusive childhood. So I played with a theme, as most humans are playing with, disempowerment, empowerment, enslavement, freedom, those big themes that we see
Mhm.
on the planet. I did it with humans. Other
Mhm.
people, my parents. Other people might do it with a partner. And you can hear lots of trauma about
Yep.
partner pairings. Some people do it with a coworker. Some people do it with a stranger. Some people do it with E.T.s.
Mhm.
So
Or even
the
a ghost. like
A
ghosts and
ghost, dark energy, that's
Mhm.
another form to play with energetic pattern. So these storylines can take any form. It doesn't matter, but we need it to take some form to bring it in up to our conscious level and work with it.
Mhm.
That's how we play with it. And so we all have dark stories in some form or another. We've just all decided what the form is. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that because somehow we're extra afraid of trauma with non-humans,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
It feels like a double trauma almost, I think, to people because it's less familiar, whether it's dark
Yes.
energy or an ET you perceive as bad or whatever.
Yes.
And so I want to call these like big forms. Like some people want to dive deep into those
Mm.
themes and they'll make big fantastical forms to
Yeah.
explore them.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that's what's going on here. And I talk to a
Mhm.
lot of people in the spiritual world who've really been scared to death of a lot of dark energy recently. And I think that's because we have so much light coming in. It's pushing out those denser aspects of who we are to be
Yeah.
worked with. Right. And so that's what's going on. I don't,
Mhm.
yeah, we're doing it to ourselves, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
we choose all of these patterns and themes and explorations before we come into our bodies and have this physical incarnated experience. We choose.
we,
And
cho-
we
we choose,
collaborate a lot of these experiences with the other person, right?
yes, but that's sort of a trigger sentence for a lot of people because I'll just go to my childhood. Would I want to choose to be treated like I was and the things that happened? Did I choose those? I'm not going to mention them here because I don't want to take our vibe down. But,
Yeah.
did people choose to be stolen, kidnapped by an ET and things done to them? So, on the meta level, we're source and we're
Mhm.
looking through a pinhole and then we're projecting on the other side of that pinhole called a physical reality. So it is us. But no, we don't line up. I want to be kidnapped, held against my will, raped, whatever. We aren't saying
Okay.
that, right?
Mhm.
That's not the choosing. The choosing is I want to play with these themes, these energetic themes.
Mm,
And when I get there, it'll unfold how it unfolds. And
I
because
see.
ultimately I am safe because I'm source and this is an illusion, but I want it
Mm,
to feel really real. So
mhm.
I can play with it. That's what's going on.
Mm. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, because people feel gaslighted
Mm,
when people say to them, "You chose this," and they're like, "I
mhm.
would never choose
Yeah.
to be kidnapped. Are you kidding me?" Right?
Yeah.
And they
But
didn't.
there yeah, but there was a choosing of I wanna play with this sort of theme and experience and density, right?
Yes, and I
Mhm.
think ultimately is I want to level it up. I want to
Mhm.
process the denser energy and bring it more up into a
And
higher
this
vibration.
yes, which is what we're all doing now on the planet with all
Yeah.
of our experiences and density.
And I think those who are playing really big games of this and venturing into deep, dark territories are doing a lot of this for the collective as well. It's not just for them.
They've taken it on for the collective.
Yes. So these
How
are
perfect.
really expanded consciousnesses who are diving deep.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I see a lot of that. Humans right now that have come in and taken on extremely dark shit
Yeah.
for the collective.
And the
Yeah,
reason why they did is because they're expanded enough to do that and
to
they know
do it.
they can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is hard to know in the moment, in the throes of it. But on the other side, where you learn your power's not out there, but in here, that's when you start to remember.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, this whole project lasted about 80-ish years
Okay.
is what
On
I've
our
heard.
timeline, right?
Yeah,
Like
from
in
our
our
linear
human.
timeline.
Mhm.
So like late 1800s, early 1900s till about the 70s or 80s. And it was a success. Like I said, they developed 5 races, physical races. Their heart spaces did open up.
Mm.
I heard from somebody channeling a YahYel that their first feeling was shame. It was small. It wasn't like full shame like we can feel, but
The
that's
grays. The
yes,
grays
that's the
first
first,
feeling.
yep, that came through was shame because of what they had done to their species hitting the wall,
Mm.
what they had done to some people who, perceived it as extreme trauma. But they eventually opened up more and more. And it's my understanding they've since ascended out of the physical plane, that they're not, that particular species of human isn't even like around our timeline anymore.
Okay.
And that's why you don't hear about these stories anymore.
Yeah, the kidnapping. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the age, I mean, like I heard it growing up my whole life, but
Mm.
you don't really, you don't, you hear people playing with the races, but you don't hear about these stories like when I was a kid.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, let's talk about the hybrids that are created. But as we're talking about the hybrids that are created, including the YahYel, I just want us to remember, and this sort of tickles our brain and maybe tickles our heart a little bit, that this is, we call it a hybrid program, and we think of the grays as E.T.s, but let's remember this is human plus human DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, we're, I think our version of human, I think most people watching this video have heard and would agree with it. We have come from many, early on, there was ET intervention, and we have a lot of different DNA within our DNA cycle. Maybe we can't all see it all right yet, but we got it.
Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing is, we're sort of the ET.
We're sort of the E.T.s. We're the ones that have
We're
this
the ones
other
that have,
genetic from other planets.
yes. And it was these other grays. I don't think they did. Now I could be wrong, but I think they were more pure human. Like, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
they had intervention. And
They just
so,
evolved. There was this timeline where they just evolved naturally. Yeah.
right. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's us who are diverse. And that's another reason why we were picked. So that's
They
funny to
like our
me.
genes.
Yes. We're the ETs they're reaching out to. They're the more standard
That's so
humans. So
funny. It's so funny to think of it like that.
it
Yeah,
is
because
hilarious.
we're the mixture of all these races. Yeah,
Right.
that's so
And remember,
funny.
everything happens in the now. So we don't have to get our brain in a knot about like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're the more diverse. And so, and all of these races that were created love us so much, like on so
Oh,
many different levels. And so this is our family, and they think of
mm,
us as family. So let's talk about what happened. So the galactic name of the grays we've been talking about is, my Bashar talks about this. It's called Maz A, is how
Maze.
Maz A.
Maze.
And so we call them grays. They call them Maz A. The
Okay.
first race created is called Maz A Ni. And that is a species that is pretty much like the grays. Like, not much changed when they added our current human DNA into
Mm-hmm.
theirs. It expressed itself more as the grays than anything. So not much change from Maz A to Maz A Ni.
Okay.
Okay. And that was phase 1 of the hybrid project. Phase 2 is where we start cooking with gas and we get more like our human expression. So
Mm.
the third hybrid race is the Sasani, which many people have heard about. This is Bashar, that Daryl Anka channels and has for like 30 years. They live on the planet as Sasani, but most of them live on ships.
Mm.
But that's their planet. They're the third race. and they are a 50-50 mix, 50
Mm.
grays, 50 our type of human. Other people channel from this collective. Another really famous one is Elon. And I can't think of the guy who channels them, but if people Google it, they'll find it. And that channeling expresses a little bit less technical and a little bit more softer. If I
Mhm.
don't know how to, if we're going to compare them, nothing's right or wrong. I'm just saying you can hear it. It sounds just like the cadence. It's just like how Daryl channels, but it is a different
Okay.
facet of their species. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes I can find Bashar to be a little aggressive. For me personally, it's just very in your face, and that's just his personality.
Well, and some of that's Daryl's personality too. So we have to
Coming through
acknowledge,
as the channel.
yeah, nobody's bringing through 100% clean information. Yeah.
That's true.
And
It comes
if you
through.
think about it, a higher dimensional being who's so feeling the all and their source beingness wouldn't be frustrated about anything.
That's true. Yeah.
They wouldn't even have expectations,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
right? They know everything's perfect. Every expression of source is perfect. Everything's safe and as it should be.
Yeah.
So they got all the time in the world. They don't need anything to happen.
Yeah.
I think
We're
that's
just
human
seeing
personality. Yeah.
little human personality coming through.
Yeah. So the Sasani look more like the Greys than us, but they are different. They're have a little not as slight of a frame, a little beefier body. It's still tiny and slight compared to us, but it's a little bit more filled out, not so thin. Big heads still and big eyes, but not like the Greys, like a little more rounded head. They're short still compared to us,
Do you know
but
about how tall? Are we talking like 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet?
I think like 4 feet.
Okay.
And I think the Greys are more like 3.5. Like they are bigger. Um, and then the next hybrid race, the fourth race, is the YahYel.
YahYel.
YahYel. And they are starting to now look more human. Some people channel from the YahYel, but not many. I've come across maybe two in over the years. They're taller than the Sasani, but they're still slender. They have, again, more of a human shaped head, more normal to us eyes. But they look a lot like the Sasani.
Okay.
Um, and still. And then, dun, da, 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 we hit the Yael, and they've got
Yay!
what we would consider a human looking hybrid.
Hmm.
So the Yael is the fifth race, and you can't really uh, tell them any different from another human other than immediately you would notice their frequency is different. So you would notice them because of the frequency. And their eyes are bigger and farther apart. Um, and their pupils, um, I'm also an art channel, and I've channeled an eye. Like one time I was asking a question and they had me draw an eye, and it was our eye, and it looked just like a human eye, but inside the pupil there were flecks of different colors like pink and gold. It was really
Beautiful.
beautiful, purple and lavender.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was great. They have less head hair. They have it, but it's stringier and
Hmm.
finer. Um, they are shorter than the typical human, but not that much shorter. We would just think of them as a smaller stature human,
Hmm.
like a petite human. And again, like I said, many people channel their YahYel counterpart, and they. It's my understanding they're actually they're working really hard to help us get ready for open contact. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but let me just finish the other species. So a lot of people say, I think I have a hybrid kid out there. What about the hybrids? When are we going to talk about the hybrids? So the hybrid kids are the YahYel plus our human DNA, which
Wow.
makes the sixth hybrid race, and they're called the Sha-Lan Aya.
Hmm.
And they were raised by the YahYel. Now, I think when people channel and have, or go into meditation or whatever, astral travel and have contact, they see anything from little kids to adults.
Hmm.
It's my understanding they're adults now
Okay.
in a linear time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but many of them connect with them as kids, and it's their first sort of ET contact. Uh, not physically. Yeah, like in front
Yeah.
of them. Yeah, it's beautiful. And there are some channels that specialize in helping you get in touch with a hybrid. If you think you have a hybrid, you probably do, or you want to be thinking about it. I
Mhm.
have not had that experience, so I don't know for me, but it's my understanding they're also already on Earth, some of them, that they have
Mm.
been practicing being on the planet, like in abandoned places you wouldn't know, abandoned buildings deep in the mountains, just trying to like figure it out.
Mhm.
And then I just want to tell you, I've a couple of friends and my kids also have what are called motel dreams. And I
Yeah.
didn't know they were, but it's funny. Everybody around me is having this motel dream. And what it is they dream that they're teaching E.T.s things. And this is them. So
Mm.
they're teaching both the YahYel and the Shalan Aya um, how to live. So it's funny dreams. Like they know it's not a motel, but the cover story sort of is they go in a
Oh
hotel
my God.
and they go into a room, and that room leads to other rooms, which leads to other rooms. We all think it means they're changing dimensions or going in
Mm.
and out of places. And they teach them things, how to shop for a dress, how to do the dishes, how to, you know, go to the store, those kinds of things. My
Yeah.
friend was laughing the other day. She said she had a dream she was teaching them that New York City is on an island, and they thought that was
Oh.
cool. My daughter, one of my daughters, well, actually, both my twins have had a lot of dreams years ago that they were being taught how to drive a ship through their chakras. And then they were teaching them how it works for humans, like it was a mutual teaching.
Mhm.
It's fascinating. And then they both wake up and they're like, oh, my back is so tired. And I think it was their solar plexus chakra that they were using to drive these ships.
Mhm.
Um, it's funny. So they have been, no, the Yael and the Shalan Aya, not everybody spent their whole life learning about humans, but a lot of them did, and they're the ones we'll meet in first contact. The other ones are off, whatever, exploring other planets, adventuring in other ways.
Mhm.
But there is a group of that society, both those races, that has spent their whole lives learning about us. So they do that energetically too. Um, so before I talk about them and sort of their community, let me just mention Bashar says the seventh and final hybrid race is called Anu Het. And that's sort of created when the hybrids are here on Earth and we become galactic citizens. That's when we hit the seventh race, is
Mhm.
us together.
Is it like all of us start breeding together? Like all or
Maybe, I don't know, but there's again, everything's in sevens, and that's the seventh this final piece of that octave is the Anuhet. And I've heard for years and years that when after open contact, we become the final like hybrid race, but I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
Why, is it just because you're galactic at that point and you know what's going on? I didn't know, but
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. Guess we'll find out.
yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the YahYel. They raise these hybrid kids, like they were raised on ships, I think. And so I'm just going to call them the YahYel, because I don't think it matters. But
Mhm.
so it's my understanding they live in a fifth density overlay above Earth on ships, the ones who've been practicing humans. And so I
Okay.
don't know quite how that works, but I think if we were to move up in vibration at that density, we would see them.
Mhm.
But we can't now. But
Mhm.
when I channel my counterpart Ishta from the Yael, she feels so close, like
Yes.
physically close.
Yeah.
And it's just right there. And so it makes sense to my brain that they would say we live in a fifth density overlay over.
Yeah. So they live on Earth, but in a higher vibration.
Yes. Yeah.
And some of them are, of course, on ships.
Yes. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
And so, and their planet as well, or our planet at that density, is very abundant with flora, fauna, lots of very
Mhm.
diverse, like we experience our Earth.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that we have in common.
Mm.
And it's something that they use. I'll talk about that in a minute, that they use with us to communicate with us.
Interesting.
So, what do they look like? Like I said, they look like us, but their eyes are a little bit farther apart and bigger. And you can just tell they're a little bit different because of their frequency. They are a little bit smaller. They do have male and female still, like they're still, expressing into a female body or a male body.
Mhm.
But I think the differences between male and female are very slight.
Mhm.
Like, I think that would be more, I mean, yes, we can see it in the phenotype of what they look like,
Mhm.
but it's more androgynous than what we see on our planet.
Ah,
And
okay.
I think it's more of a genetic, like the genotype, as opposed to um, how we're living, like the expression of masculine and feminine,
I see.
in our species is, both ends of the spectrum. And I think they're a
Yeah.
little closer on the spectrum.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they do wear clothes. I always, if I interact with them, I see them in like jumpsuits that are kind of
Mhm.
gray, and fit close to the body. Um, a lot of people who channel the Yael see them in 40s clothing,
1940s clothing, huh?
1940s clothing, and your friend saw her
Yeah.
person in 40s clothing.
Yes.
And I uh, went back and looked at Gita Rose, who channels Bella. I don't know how much channeling she does anymore, but this was years ago, to see if I could find um, when that was coming through her channeling, and I couldn't find it. But I remember she asked, why do I see you in this 40s clothing? You're always in different outfits from the 40s. And the being Bella said, it's what we like. It's like how we like to express ourselves.
Mm.
But I think there's more to it, because also people have noticed the clothing is alive. So if you zoom
Wow.
into their clothing, it's moving, it's alive. And it makes me wonder if what they're making their clothing out of is, living plants that stay living while they're in the clothing.
Yeah. I could see that. They would have a higher vibrational type of clothing
Yes.
than a lot of what we wear is polyester and synthetic and dead, or it's cotton and wool, but it's no longer alive.
Yeah. Like we've fractalized it out too much, so it's not a whole anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. So I don't know, but energetically, it feels like they're pointing at something, that it's a nod to something, this 40s aesthetic.
Yeah. Well, that was so interesting. So I'll take this moment to kind of insert a little bit about my friend's first contact experience. Um, and so she we've been working with the Galactic Federation for a while on First Contact, and she did meet a YahYel woman in person. Of course, we didn't know that she was YahYel. When this woman came to visit my friend, she didn't even know she was an ET at the time, and she put it together in her head later. But the woman was wearing these 1940s clothing, and she was in the woods because we've been practicing making contact in nature. She said this woman just, first showed herself to her, kind of walked by in her line of sight as my friend was doing this practice for contact, and she was wearing this long plaid skirt, like almost to the ankle, tucked in shirt, and my friend noticed something was off. Something was different. Something was just different about her that she couldn't put her finger on. And she was like, why is she wearing these clothes in the woods? Like, it was just strange to her. And then later on, when my friend was leaving, this woman, she did it in such a beautiful way, was sitting on a log, but the log was like in the path. So, normally if you're resting and you're on a trail, you're going to sit on the side and let people come through. But she was sitting on a log that jutted into the path. And she was doing that. She had her back to my friend as she was coming up the trail to leave. And she had her back to her, and she was gazing down away, so she couldn't see her eyes. And then also part of our contact technique is through the eye. It's a meditative gaze. And so when my friend came up, she had this feeling like this woman's waiting for me. But then she just brushed it off because it was, too weird. Like, why would she be waiting? And then when she passed her, she turned to say hi and greet her because she was like the only other person in the forest. And her body language said, "Don't talk to me." But she was like showing herself to her, and she was doing the gaze and like the contact method that we've been practicing. And it wasn't till later when my friend kind of put it together, like all these strange and odd things, that she was an ET. And it was like that woman came in that night and was like impressing it into her consciousness, right? Because they're all telepathic and communicate that way, and kind of pressed it in and was like, you met me, I'm an ET. And since then, her and I have been channeling her, and we've been talking to her. And her name, we call her Rita. And what's so amazing and interesting is like we were talking to you, and you're like, that's a YahYel. And just all of these things like checked the boxes. And I didn't know the YahYel. You had mentioned them on our first episode, that the first species we likely have contact with would either be the YahYel or the Pleiadians. I never heard of YahYel, but it, like, the 1940s clothing was like, check. And then when she didn't show her eyes, she kind of just had them down. I'm like, okay, well, if their eyes are a little different, that would make sense. She wasn't showing her eyes. And then we'd also talked to her later on, and Rita said, I've been studying humans and preparing for contact since I was a baby. Like, she said, baby. I'm like, that's interesting. And then for you to share, right, that many of the YahYel have been training and preparing for this their whole lives. And this woman, she is a YahYel, but she's grown up on the Galactic Federation ship. So she's totally galactic, but looks very human because she's YahYel. And then just the other thing I'll share as well is she feels, like you said, they really like understand us. They feel so close. She, like, out of all the ETs I talk to, I feel like she understands me the most. She understands my emotions. She just feels the most similar and most human like, which I think is why it's perfect for contact. So I just wanted to insert that all of this was like, check, check, check.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, the Galactics have said, for open contact for us, because we have so much fear, that it would be best that we meet a species that resembles us and not something that's so, you know, we've never even thought of, because our
Yeah.
fear's already so high. So
Yes.
to take that fear down, it would be a species that we can relate to. And
Yeah.
it might be more than one too. Like they used to say years ago, it would be the YahYel. And then about 5 years ago, they started saying, well, maybe the Pleiadians, maybe the YahYel. We don't know. We'll know in the moment. And now, like as of right now, it feels like maybe both at the same time. Like,
Cool.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
So let's talk about that part. So they, they are very connected. They do use telepathy. They're very close as a species, not like us. We're still in that really diverse state,
Mhm.
doing our thing. We're
Yeah.
not united as one group, let alone one consciousness. Um, but they are very close and have a group. Like they have their own consciousness, but they do share a group consciousness. So because they live so in unison, they can feel when a member is out of alignment.
Mhm.
So like if a member in their species was having trouble with something, they would all feel that vibrationally and know how to support that individual.
Oh, that's beautiful. Why
And
can't
it's
we have that? I want to have that in our species.
well, I think we can. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
Um, and They, of course, have a more expanded consciousness. They're very happy and light and laughy and giggly.
Mhm.
Um, like, I can't tell you how happy they are.
Oh my God.
Every interaction I've ever had with them, they're just like beaming with happiness.
Huh.
Um, and they take for granted their source beingness. Like, they feel it all the time.
Mhm.
Like they don't feel separate from it. We do because we've been playing this game of separation, but that's not the game they've been playing as a species.
Mhm.
They've been playing steady humans, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why it seems so different for us, but they just take it for granted. They call us masters of limitation, masters of separation, because we've been playing with these denser energies. And they see us as these big, powerful experts on
Oh.
this. That they see sort of how they explain it to me is that we're on a slingshot ride. We reach deep down into density and checked that out and played with it in its various forms and themes. And the deeper you go, the faster you can shoot up towards ascension. It's like a
Mhm.
slingshot. And so they see us as masters in that way, that we've explored depths that they don't understand.
Mhm.
And as a result, we'll shoot into ascension quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I guess that's very hard to do. And we've been doing it. So
We are masters at that.
yes, we are quite revered for that. And so it's funny how a lot of humans think, oh, we're going to get taught when the ETs come. And yes, they have things to share for us, but we also have much to share for them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a continual message I get from the Galactic Federation is they're like, it's an equal sharing.
Yeah.
We have so much we want to learn from you. And again, I had to kind of work through that when I was putting them all on a pedestal and like, oh, they're all perfect and beautiful and have so much technology. No, but they want to learn from us and they're so intrigued and excited to hear
Yes.
about all of our experiences and learn what they can.
Yes, yeah, it is. And it's my sense it's quite unique right now in the universe. I don't know really what that means, but I can tell that the spotlight's on us in a
Mhm.
beautiful way. Like
Mhm.
we've attracted the attention of um, both that in physical and that not in physical
Mhm.
on this journey that we've been on.
Yeah. And I feel like just to clarify, so when you say density, humans, we've taken a deep dive into density. Can you just clarify what you mean by that?
Yes. So if you think of there's many. Okay, so I'm going to say it in kind of 3D terms. We went deep into 3D. We explored dark, really contracted themes such as, like I said, enslavement, disempowerment, um, the other, is not me, um, all these dark things that we've
Mm-hmm.
been paying attention to, the separation between masculine and feminine, and the patriarchy is a sign of masculine, divine masculine imbalance, where there's not enough divine feminine in there. That's created a lot of things. We've went to the depths and explored dark stuff, and instead of saying dark, I think from a looking at it from consciousness, we could say dense energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or a dense vibration, or we could say it's fractalized out. It's very divided up
Mm-hmm.
and separate. And then we're coming back into wholeness or oneness, and our vibration is moving up, so less dense. There's
Mm-hmm.
many lenses you can use.
Yeah. And I feel like, so I do energy healings. These kind of these lower vibrational energies, like they literally move slower, like they're literally denser, like fear, anger, powerlessness, shame, guilt. They move at a slower frequency, and they're very, very dense, like in our bodies, in our planet. And again, like so I'll just share again, like you said, with when you had met your gray counterpart and she kind of showed you how focused, and it was like felt claustrophobic. One of the ETs that I work with, so he was it's kind of funny, but he was sharing, like, because he's at such a high vibration, he has a physical body, and he's one that will be coming to earth and we'll meet him. But he had shared when he was like, he was basically like trying to squeeze down, and he's like, it's like taking a shit and you're just like, ooh, like contracting to bring his kind of frequency down to that of humans. And he's like, it's so uncomfortable, it's painful, it's very claustrophobic. So, but the ETs that are having first contact, I think at this point they are bringing their frequencies down a little bit as we raise up to have a match to get to meet them in person, and eventually we just keep raising and they don't have to come down as much. But just like, I think for viewers to understand that density, there really is, a physicality to fear and to anger, and it vibrates slower in our bodies.
Yes, yes, I would agree completely. And even, I mean, people can even relate to, like, if you are struggling with something and you realize you have a limiting belief, that's a limitation lens you've placed on your source beingness, right? So you've crunched it down more. And then when you get rid of it, or you realize, oh, wow, why was I thinking that? Actually, this is the case. You feel so much more expansive and
Yes,
free.
you feel lighter.
Right. So we can experience this in so many different ways. It's very layered.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is cool.
totally.
The other thing is their consciousness. So ascension is about the evolution of consciousness. And obviously they have a more expanded consciousness at where they're living. They evolved quite quickly because they weren't playing around with all this deep density.
Mhm.
Um, so it's my understanding, because of their that higher level of consciousness, they're more fluid in general. So not even just in their thought and their behavior, but even their physicality, I think, is a little more fluid
Wow,
at the density they're living at, and they can change looks to some degree, or show up as a kid when they're, and then an adult. Like, I think they can play around
wow.
with their physicality to some degree.
Yeah, I was learning that, and I don't understand it, but at these higher vibrations that they can change the physical matter. They can affect it with their thought. It's more fluid. Which
Yes.
again, it blows my mind. But an ET was telling me yesterday, he's like, you can change the color of something just with your intention. Like just intend it, or on a ship, you can just change like the color of the ship or bring in different furniture with your thought. And it blows my mind, but apparently, yeah, like it makes sense to me that it's more fluid, it's less of the solid matter, so they can change things with their intention.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so sometimes some of their games are like that, like guess who I am or
That's funny.
yeah, it is funny. They also love to express themselves a lot. So they might express themselves that way in a game, or they might make art or some form of play. And the difference is that it's in the moment, whereas ours,
Mhm.
we're not very good yet at being in the moment. We're working toward it. We're getting there, but they are living in the moment. So their art might be, a vocalization that nobody heard or,
Uh-huh.
something drawn in the air. Like it's not as permanent, I guess, as we think of things.
Not necessarily like I'm working on this painting for 5 years and then it's going to go be in a gallery and that's art.
Right. It's more in the moment. And a
Beautiful.
lot of times it's a play with them in nature, playing together to make art.
Oh.
Yeah, or to be creative. When they're born, the young teach the older people, and the older people also help train the young people based on their interests. So it's a mutual give and take. No one is seen as wiser than the other.
Wow.
Um, they do have partners if they want to. They don't have to. Like it's just whatever. Again, they're more fluid. It might be one or more partners at
Hmm.
one time or together. Like it might be a small group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it might be for a long time or a short time. It's creative and fluid.
Wow.
It serves the purpose of joy, and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Also, when they create a baby, they do it energetically with the being's soul. So they I don't know technically how this works, but the words we have, like their higher selves, would get together with the higher self of the soul, and they'd energetically decide what that expression would look like in the incarnation,
Wow.
and sort of partner up and bring it through energetically. I think they do have the ability to procreate the way we do, but I think it's typically done on an energetic level.
So do you know how this would look? Would they still have a baby through the womb space, like through the like
I
carried?
think they're capable, but I think that's less common. I think the norm would be, I don't know if we want to say gestation outside the body. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to people send people into like old sci-fi movies that are scary.
Sure.
This is like a very loving thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it is coming into a form that has been grown or
Mm-hmm.
through the womb, and if it does come through the womb, is it like dense like ours, like we hold it for 9 months and then we have this birthing process, or is it
Yeah.
moments and it flows through the body? I don't know.
Wow. Well, I guess we'll be learning as we start to
Yeah,
meet them. We can ask. I'm very curious how this works.
I know, right? Yeah, it's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
When they die, they decide when, and it's
Oh
like
my gosh.
leaving for a trip. Like they decide, okay, I'm done with this incarnation,
Oh my God.
and they get together and celebrate the life. I know, and then we'll just like lay down and leave. Yeah,
Oh my God. Wow. Like,
it's
I'm out.
so,
I'm gonna go back to source and maybe I'll come back in another incarnation.
Well, and I think, again, this hybrid project, this is the things we value in their community and their way of being are things because that's where we want to go, right? So it's not an
Mhm.
accident that this is going to be our support team.
Yes, that's what I was just thinking. I was going to ask, do you feel like this is, as we're ascending and we're raising in consciousness and frequency, kind of where we're going and some of the things humans will get to experience as well?
Yes, I think that it's my understanding they chose us and we chose them. So
Mm.
behind the scenes, you know, even maybe behind the astral realm, like the soul collective, I'm sure we could see the value of this interplay of this hybrid program
Mm.
because um, we have this next step right in front of us. And
Yeah.
as a species where we would love to be. And then the species lives so close to us, the YahYel, that they love us so much and they understand us.
Mm-hmm.
And the nuance that they have for us is so, the understanding of nuance that they have is unlike any other ET species I've encountered.
Yeah.
They understand us at this really refined level. They understand our emotions at this really refined level. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's not only because they've been studying us their whole lives, but genetically they
Mm-hmm.
can feel it. And so that's so helpful to us as we grow and expand and we learn about our emotions. If you listen to some people channel one person, and we can, if you want to put these links when you post this,
Yeah, let's
I
leave
can
the
give you
link.
this info. But Vitica, she channels Arjun from the YahYel. And Arjun is very poetic, but I think all the YahYel beings are. And there's constant metaphor and in what Arjun says,
Mm.
and these the use, the way the words are used, it's just, I don't know how to explain it other than there's so much love energy wrapped up inside of it and presence, lots of presence. They'll say something and on the surface it looks like one thing, and then 2 days later you sort of unwrap it metaphorically and you discover something else, and it's a play on words, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. That's how they interact with us, and I think that's where we're headed.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, my friend who met Rita, she said even though she couldn't place, who is this woman in 1940s clothing? What is she doing in the woods? Is she waiting for me? It's odd she's looking at the ground and not talking to me, but she felt this like familiarity and really likingness of this woman. Like when she saw her, she's like, "Oh, I hope I see her again in the woods sometime. I'd love to talk with her and talk about what she's doing. Is she meditating?" But there's a real familiarity. And even like I said, as I've been talking to Rita telepathically, she's so similar to us compared to any other ETs. Like she just understands and she'll say the right thing, and there's so much empathy and, like you said, nuance. So there's just like I want to get to know her. I want to get to know the YahYel. They feel so familiar.
Yeah, it feels magnetic to me, like when I
Mm.
um notice that energy. And I also notice it a lot. I'm looking outside in the woods. Being in nature is a great way to connect with the Yael. It's something we have in common, nature and love of nature. And they can communicate with us through nature. And they encourage people who are interested to just go into nature and calm down and relax and really feel into your heart space. And they said that it would be easy to feel their presence through your heart, and your whatever clairs that go off for you. For me, it would be a knowingness. Some people might see something in their third eye.
Mhm.
But even if your clairs aren't firing off, just feeling nature is a way to have contact with them.
Mhm. And so Claire's clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance,
Yep.
yeah, are
Yeah.
clairs. And so I had a really interesting experience in nature just this last weekend. So my friend and I, we go out in nature, and we've been told that right now this is the best place to make contact. It's the highest vibration we have. And so we were doing our kind of contact protocols that we have, and we're working with a couple specific YahYels, and they said we weren't able to come and meet you, but they said they sent these deer. So this pack of 5 deer come to where we were working, and the YahYel said, "Well, we're very telepathic, and we telepathically can communicate with animals, and we requested." Dear, can you come, and show yourselves to them as a way of making contact, because they couldn't come through physically. So I think that's really fascinating that they could talk to an animal telepathically and send it.
Yeah, right. Because it's through intention, right? Not sentences,
Yeah,
right? Telepathy is
exactly.
about, yeah, intention. And that reminded me, sharing that they have in the past come through my cat, that she's
Really?
no longer living, but yeah, they would come through her and look at me, and I
Oh.
could feel that it wasn't her. She was gone, and it was so sweet, and they would be close to me that way,
That's
um,
cool.
which is just so lovely. And they're so insightful, again, because they're so close to us and they understand these finer details about humans that maybe other species don't. They are so good at support. So, like, if I needed a counseling moment, I would get a channeling from a YahYel being,
Yes.
because the insight is profound, and I have done that over the years. And um, one of my most favorite is when they told me, it was at the end of the session, and my daughter and I went together. It was one where we just did one together. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It was this years ago, and this is shows their personality. So um, at the end of the session, my daughter, who is very Yaya like in that she's very happy and glowy and just sort of that next level human, just really connected in all the time, and a ray of sunshine. And so she said something to them, and they said to her, "Tell us a joke." She said, "Can I do?"
Oh.
And they said, "Tell us a joke." And she said, "What is brown and sticky?" And they said, "We don't know." And she said, "A stick."
Oh my God.
They they were beyond delighted, like so happy. They thought that was the best joke they'd ever heard. Um, they loved it so much. And then I said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And they said to me, it was more serious with me, but they said, uh, "You've already done it." And I said, "What have I done?" And they said, "You have shown us how you've used your power to hide your power." And like, that blew the head off my body. Like, I've never forgotten that I'm like playing this game of separation.
Yeah.
I've used my power to hide my power. I've used my power to mask my infinity, my limitlessness, my source beingness. And I just, like, I've thought about that for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
So it just shows you, like, they just know, and it's what I needed to hear. Like, it was a personal thing for me that I needed to hear in that moment. It had many layers. It was about me and my empowerment and all kinds of stuff that I was working through. And but I think that channeling was a good demonstration of interacting with the YahYel, because they can just deliver in a profound one-liner. They're laughing, they're playing. One time I think it was in that session, I asked him, I said, this is years ago, but I said, I'm really struggling because I don't want to eat meat. Like, it troubles me to eat other being,
Yeah.
animals. But yet I still sometimes crave meat, and it's hard not to eat meat. Like, I kind of torn up about this. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, what do you do? And they said, they laughed really hard and they said, we do not eat our friends. And I said, okay, that makes sense. And they said, but let it go. Like, that's why you're in your human incarnation in that place on earth, is to experience that. Like, you came to experience everything or it wouldn't be there. So stop thinking about it and just do what feels good. Like, there's no right and wrong or should have. Just let it
Mhm.
go. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah. I'll also share that. So Rita was talking to me yesterday, and I just felt like she was my therapist. Like you said, if you needed a counseling moment, I would go to a YahYel. It's like she just said the perfect thing. And sometimes if I go to other ETs, there's a level of spectrum of kind of understanding. Some of them really know what to say, or they're more joyful. Some of them are more analytical. Some of them clearly have no clue what to say about humans and, the things we experience here, which is fine. But with Rita, there was just this such deep understanding and wisdom and compassion. And it just really clicked and resonated with me, her words, and in the way that other ETs don't always for me.
Yeah, because they understand us so well. Like, they can um, speak to the experience we're having, whereas maybe other beings who are not quite as close to us in the ways we've talked about might deliver something very true,
Yes.
but bigger picture. And so
Yes.
you're like, yes, that, thank you, super helpful. That is true, to remember the bigger picture. And I'm still stuck on, how
Mm-hmm.
do I apply that right now? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, years ago, when I started, like, more consciously talking to the YahYel as an adult, somebody asked me about finding a counselor, and I was like, I only do galactic counseling.
And it's free. You don't have to pay any.
Or even if I pay somebody to channel it, right?
Yeah.
Like, right? Like, yeah, it's
Oh
like
my God.
so more effective. Yeah, just because they have both the big picture and the nuance. So the YahYel are profound in that way. That's why we couldn't have a better partner in open contact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing, my friend who met Rita, YahYel woman, said she felt so safe and so comfortable. There was
Yeah.
no fear. Like the way this woman did it and just showed herself was like the perfect way for my friend. Like she was specifically did it in a way that my friend would see her and recognize her. Like it was specifically orchestrated for my friend. And even the YahYel woman who came through, like that was specific. And, to not show her the eyes, because they said that another step would be to make eye contact. Like that would be another progression with open contact, is to look in each other's eyes, because there's a lot of energy that goes on. Or even my friend didn't know she was an ET. So like the next time, if she sees this same woman, to see her and then to know that she's an ET woman, maybe they won't have eye contacts, maybe she'll just be kind of looking down, but she'll show herself again, and now my friend will know, okay, I'm around an ET. But they're doing it in such a way that's comfortable and safe and what we're ready for. They're not pushing it too fast. So I know, just based off of her experience and how everything you're sharing about the YahYel, I'm like, yeah, I feel safe. I feel ready. I would love to have my own first contact with a YahYel or a Pleiadian or whoever, but just I really like the YahYel.
I do too, and I don't know how it's going to swing, and maybe it'll be both or together.
Mhm.
I do think that when we come into contact with the Yael, it is a more it's a bigger tap on a poke on us to acknowledge our true self, our true expansive source beingness. I think they bring that to us. And I think maybe in some respects that might be scary to people who are not ready for that step. But my guess is they wouldn't be talking to Yael if they weren't ready or
Sure.
even thinking about it. But I do think that's something that and I'm sure any higher dimensional being would offer that because of their frequency, would just bring that sourceness
Yeah.
to us. But when you face, it's like facing self. Like right when you're in communication with a Yael being, it's a clearer mirror, maybe. Yeah,
That's how my friend experienced it. Like it felt like she was almost mirroring her in a
yeah,
way. Yeah.
yes. So it's very intimate and
Yes. Yeah. Her experience is very intimate. And I will say, so Rita, since then, I've been in communication with her because we're all working on first contact. She's Galactic Federation, I'm Galactic Federation. And Rita showed me an image of an example of how my first contact might go. And she showed me a male YahYel, and I see him in nature, and I just see him waving at like from quite a distance, so I feel safe. And he waved, and this was before I knew anything about the YahYel, right? She just showed me this as an image, and I was just in the image. I felt him, and I was just like, he feels fun. I like him. I feel safe. Like I want to get to know him. Like, but there was really this resonance. And I found out since then that he is a YahYel counterpart of me. And so I've been talking to him too, and he's so funny and fun. And it does feel like I'm meeting myself. I'm like, and I don't have any siblings. So it feels like he's like a brother or something because we feel so similar. So, yeah, so I understand what you mean by the mirroring. And for those of us that do have a YahYel counterpart, like how much fun it is to meet them and like how safe we'll feel. Because if we do meet a counterpart, they're coming from the same soul. It's the same soul, just in a different body. So I think that makes us feel super safe too.
and it's the message of which is what open contact is about, which is becoming more aware of the greater aspects of who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is you. I mean, from a place of oneness, it's all you, the tree, the desk, the other humans you see are other selves of your creation. All of it, it's just you in there.
Yeah.
Having your physical experience inside your soul. But when we come into contact with our counterparts, it, which is, I think, our what we'll do, it's
Mhm.
our first tangible experience of how vast we are and
Mm.
who we really are, not this little limited human called Lauren and Beth. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. It is.
Mhm.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I love that you just continue to remind me about the bigger picture of this and the ascension, because I can get really pulled into I want to make contact and I want to meet people from other planets, and you bring back that, well, it's about the ascension and helping us raise our vibration and remember who we are. And these are other aspects of ourself.
Yeah. And we get to play with them also.
We all get to play. Like in our first episode together, you're like, once the E.T.s are here, like it's just gonna be a big love party together.
Yep.
Yeah. I was looking through our outline. There was one point I kind of wanted to bring up and ask you about. Um, I felt important. So when we were back to the grays, the original grays that we were talking about. So you said that we've kind of learned that the human template, or the human template on Earth, at least, right? Because there's a lot of human species throughout the universe, but the human template on Earth tends to lean more towards advancing mentally versus emotionally. So with the grays, for example, and we see that a lot in humans right now too. Very mental, very analytical. Sometimes we get cut off from our hearts. But you said, so this is why we as a soul collective have slowed down technology development, is to allow our emotional selves and kind of our spiritual evolution to catch up. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot that part. So
Yeah.
I think it's many forms of human species. I don't know how many different variations there are, but I know, like, if you general human template tends to go mental first and lean in the mental space. And so we saw that with that other version of human grays, right? That took a left turn and went way into that space. But we see it in our species. And that's why contact has been timed as it has to
Mm-hmm.
help us not do that, and to help us have time to really open up our heart space. And so all these plans are made ultimately behind the scenes by our soul collective, right? And um and so there's a lot of humans will notice, like big thinkers, that wait a minute, technology went crazy until about, what did they say, like the 60s or something,
Yeah.
and then it's kind of quiet, like it's slow, right?
Yeah.
And we're at the point where it should have, we should have had major breakthroughs in transportation
Uh-huh.
and exchange and it, the way we work, the way we live, all of these things. Like, why has that happened? And I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it. I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of ET people will say that ETs won't allow it. Like, I believe that our soul collective has done this on purpose to allow our humans selves to catch up, and so that all of our energy centers can come online together, and
Mm-hmm.
so that we can evolve into the human we desire to evolve into in this incarnation cycle on this planet, which is not like anything, I don't think, that's ever been out there, meaning all of our technology is inside of us. Oh, you pause for a minute. So all of our technology is inside of us, but to unlock it, we have to have expansion of consciousness. To have expansion in consciousness, we need all of our energy centers to be evolving together and open and balanced. And so we've slowed things down a bit to allow that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, that really makes sense. So I've heard a little bit about like the Lemurian society that was here on Earth in Atlantis. I don't know that much about it, but I feel like I remember reading that they had become more advanced mentally and their spiritual evolution hadn't caught up. Does that track?
Yes, that's my understanding. And the thread to all of this is the imbalance of masculine and feminine energy. I think that we tend to get unbalanced energetically, and we lean towards the masculine side, which
Mm-hmm.
includes the mental space,
Analytical, yeah.
and we don't maintain the balance. And so I think this is like our third attempt in linear time
Mm-hmm.
to balance this energy. I think the however we're constructed, that's sort of the evolutionary step that we're trying to achieve, is the balancing of
Mm-hmm.
masculine, feminine, and energy in the one body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like by coming into contact with other species, such as the YahYel, who have mastered this or at least have more of that balance, they can help be role models for us as we're trying to achieve that.
And I think that's why we're moving in that direction, because we've been opening our heart space. So,
Yeah.
right. And so, like you said, we're moving up and they're moving down to meet
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
If you've noticed, we went, like, I've talked to people about E.T.s uh, out loud, outside of my very small circle, like probably starting maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
And it was quite mental. It was,
Mm.
where are the ships? What are they made out of? What planet do they live on? What
Uh-huh.
clothes do they wear? What technology do they have? And then I would say in the last 3 years, people just out of nowhere, those are not the questions. The questions are um, about consciousness expansion and spirituality, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't care what their name is and where they came from and what form they take. They're just like, okay, how do I in my life do X, Y, and
Mm-hmm.
Z? Like, um, so we have moved down into the heart space,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we talked about that even on another episode, about how this is a natural process of moving through lenses, moving from the young, looking through the young soul
Mm-hmm.
lens of the outer world, conquering the outer world, to moving into the mature soul lens of what's going on inside. And with that is moving down into the heart space.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I think the technology's coming, and obviously when our friends get here,
Mm-hmm.
we'll take it up a level. But the other point too is the technology inside of us needs to start to come online. So we don't want to be distracted with what's out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we want to, in the future, create technology from a place of love as opposed to a place of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because technology created with fear is limited, right? So fear might take the place, it might take the form of competition or
Mm-hmm.
scarcity or prevention of scarcity, all the
Sure.
things, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say a lot of things we have on this planet have been created out of fear because that's what we were exploring,
Yeah,
up until now as we're going through the ascension.
exactly.
Yeah. And would you say, so as we come into contact, whether it's the YahYel, Pleiadians, or whoever, that we will be, like we were talking about the hybrid program, we will be having babies with them and we will be making new hybrid species as we come into contact.
That's my understanding. I mean, I think it's a natural process.
Mhm.
I don't think they're coming here for that. They
No,
don't
yeah.
need that. But I think eventually, as we get past the initial stages and we settle in together, and those that stay on the planet with us, or maybe
Mhm.
some of us go with them to other places. I think that's a natural evolution
Yeah. Yeah.
through relationship, not through any other means.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
just natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. And would you still say, so we did our most recent episode was a few months ago, and you were saying that, you're seeing that open contact could happen within the next year or two. Again, open contact meaning we're all here hanging out with the E.T.s. Everyone knows there's E.T.s. We're meeting with them, we're working with them, we're having relationships. Would you say we're still on track for that timeline? I
Yeah.
would say so, with my friend having just had her first contact in October, and I feel like things are speeding up.
I do too. I think it'll start as it has with individuals having their own
Mhm.
in-person contact. I think I said to somebody last year, we're going to start hearing people, instead of showing up to a meeting saying, I saw a UFO, it's going to be, I hung out with an ET.
Mhm.
I think it's going to happen more and more and more. And then by the time we have global open contact, it won't be so out there in terms of news and experience. I mean, I think we'll ease into it by lots of people having their own experiences and
Yeah.
sharing. Plus, there's a frequency to that. So when you make contact, like your energy field takes in things from their energy field, right?
Yes.
And then you go to Trader Joe's and those energy fields take
Yes.
that from your energy field, right? Like, I think frequency wise, it'll spread
Mhm.
before we see form.
Mhm. And that also reminds me that my friend, when she met Rita, she was when she passed by her in the forest on the log, she got in very close proximity physically. And afterwards, she was receiving a lot of upgrades to her field, which for her came up as she was really sick for about a week. And we just attribute this to her body upgrading and cleansing out some of the more dense stuff. Um, and then I met up with her about a week later. She passed it on to me, so we're calling it the galactic flu. But even though I was sick, I could feel, okay, I'm getting upgrades, I'm getting cleansed out in there. I was getting kind of an upgrade from coming into contact with her field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're doing it all the time and we don't realize it. And then it's
Mhm.
more obvious when we come into something big and new like that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll also share for my viewers. So, my friend and I have developed a method of first contact. While working with the Galactic Federation over the last year. And we've shared it with Beth, and it's an energetic thing that you do yourself. I think there probably are a lot of purposes or functions for it, but the one that I'm currently using right now is to be able to make contact and call in ETs, and kind of create a protective, energetic environment to have these first contact experiences. So, if any of you listening right now are interested in learning this technique, these protocols, send me an email. I'm putting that out there and offering that, to begin teaching it so that more and more of us can have these experiences if that's what you want. And again, I'm sure there's so many ways I know there are infinite ways first contact can happen. It doesn't have to be through this technique, but I am happy to teach those of you who would like to learn how it's been possible for my friend and what I'm practicing now.
Yeah. I think it's good that there's so many different ways, even just deciding you want to have open contact and you walk outside or in your bedroom and you see
Yeah.
ET, right? It can be that simple. But we have a lot of limiting beliefs and we all share at some level issues with worthiness. It's the
Yes.
human experience,
I've worked
right?
through that
And then,
too.
yes, it's
Yeah.
part of exploring separation and these denser energies. And so we haven't shed all of that yet as we come back into oneness. And so sometimes having a mechanism
Yeah.
like you're sharing can be super helpful because it keeps you out of that other place of limiting beliefs and worthiness because you're focused on that. I think that's, and many things like that. Lots of people have different techniques, and yours is really fun.
It's really fun,
And
isn't
so
it?
I would tell all your audience members, email Lauren because you'll like it and it makes you feel really good.
Yes, I think, we
Yes.
were kind of doing some channeling on this technique. So I'll just share again. It's an energetic technique with intention to invite ETs in, but you do activate, a technology in your body. And we were just channeling about it yesterday. And it's like, what you're doing to your body is just incredible. Like the healing and the energy we feel inside, and it's really raising your vibration. I took it to a whole nother level the other day, and I was just, I guess I'd feel like a YahYel. Like I was just laughing, just like I was a child again, like just laughing my ass off. I felt so good and so present. I was running around the house. Like I had just gone to some level, like, and my body, I felt so light. Like I felt like I was in a cloud, and I never had that experience. Um, like it just felt like if you were kind of to walk through a cloud, like it almost felt like mist, like cool and just so light. I said, "Oh my God, this is what the ETs get to feel like all the time. Like their bodies are just so light. Like it almost just feels like you've smoked weed and you're high. Just how you're just so giggly. Just everything's hilarious to you." So anyway, I hadn't had that experience with this technique before. Um, but the ETs are saying, yes, you can use it to make contact, and that's my intention, but also what it's doing to your own energy field, and it's cleaning you out, it's raising your vibration, is really the thing. And to be less outcome driven about seeing an ET, but focusing on my own, what I'm developing in my own body.
That's awesome and exciting.
Yeah.
I haven't felt like that, but I feel really expanded and empowered. And I don't mean expanded like I'm not in my body. I am fully in my body and feel expanded, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
To be so grounded and expanded. And I just, so maybe it works on stuff you're working on. Because for me, I just felt so solid and empowered. Like I felt so in my power
Awesome.
after I practiced each time that I was like, yeah, this is like, better than, acupuncture or meditating. Like it
Yes.
just makes you feel good.
You
Yeah.
feel amazing. And
Yeah.
I've had times where I come out of it and I experience a lot of just mental clarity. I know I feel present. I feel like all my thoughts, all the chatter, past, future worries, like chatter goes away, and I just feel so present, and I feel so clear even after I'm done. And like while I'm doing it, all this healing energy is coming in. So yeah, if anyone's interested, please reach out and I'd be happy to teach you. And
Awesome.
maybe you'll meet a YahYel. Yeah. Beth, do you have any last things you want to share as we wrap up about the YahYel, about the grays, about the ascension going on, about open contact at all?
Um, I don't think so. I would just tell people as you're exploring to remember that it's all you. So, if there's something you're afraid of, don't push it down. Let it come forward. Share it with Source. Breathe through the feeling. Feel your feeling fully. Feeling fully. Even if you're just thinking about maybe reaching out to Lauren or wanting to see a YahYel or another ET. Sometimes you can get afraid just to think about it. And
Yeah.
this is a natural process, the fear coming up. And so feel it and let it go. the ETs have shared any feeling you have, if you feel it fully, the longest it can last is like 16, 17 seconds. So, and then it switches to oneness. So you're not in there very long. So just go for it.
Wow.
Yeah, just feel your feelings and remember that it's other yous, that this is all you and there's nothing to be afraid of. Just love out there waiting
Mhm.
for you.
Wow. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I've been feeling how, like, some people go to the gym and they lift weights, or they're runners, or they're swimming, right? And they're pushing through things, kind of leveling up. I feel like I'm doing that with fear. And
Yeah.
because this process can bring up a lot of fear, or going out and doing this technique and not seeing a YahYel can bring up a lot of disappointment for me. And am I crazy? Is this really, like, why am I doing this? And I remembered what you said, that to fully feel the emotion, and that after 17 seconds it dissolves. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay to feel fear. It's okay. It actually isn't killing me, but stuffing it down is even worse. But I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to breathe through it. 17 seconds. I'm going to allow myself to just feel it and welcome it in my body. And it's going to pass through. I'm going to transmute this. I'm like, you know what? I'm getting really good at doing reps with my fear, with feeling my fear. I think that's more of how I'm training in this lifetime. Not lifting weights or running miles, but doing reps, feeling my emotions.
It's so true. I love that you likened it to lifting weights because it is building a muscle.
Mhm.
And the muscle to not run away or to stuff it down, the muscle to stick with it, the muscle to dive in. One of my friends said, lean into the shark point.
Yeah.
Yes, like that is muscle building. And it's so much easier after like lifting actual weights. Once you get going, it gets easier. It's only in the beginning that it feels you feel the resistance.
Yeah.
And then you start to get some traction and then it goes faster. And
Mhm.
I think that is true for our emotions as well.
Yeah.
And it's part of the human experience to have emotions. So the, I don't think the goal is to get to this state of ecstasy where you never have
Never. Yeah.
emotions, right? It's getting to a place where as you encounter contrast in your environment, you know what to do.
hmm And I'll say, even I've been teaching some of the E.T.s about that too, because even though they have these higher, and I mostly talk with E.T.s that do have bodies. I know a lot of the ones you channel are no longer embodied, but most of them I talk with are on the Federation ship and they have bodies and we're working on contact. Um, and even though they have these higher frequency bodies, they still have emotions. They still have fear. They still have ego. It may not be to the same level that we do and the same density that we do, but they still have these emotions. And in many ways, I've been teaching them, here are the techniques I use as an earth human. And I pull from all different cultures. And, if it works, it works. And I do it. I've been teaching them, here's how you feel your emotions. Here's how you express. Here's how I connect to source. Here's how I pray. And so they've been learning from me.
Right. Which I think is the point, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, back to what we said in the beginning, that we're peers and we have mastered something amazing that we aren't even aware of yet, right? We're just starting to see this. And even though in our day to day, we might not feel like masters of anything, we really are. Just to even be here, we are masterful
Yeah.
in this incarnation. And now it's really going to take on new proportions.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we start really working with our emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Beth. Well, thank you so much. This was an incredible episode, and I hope that this helps with people who are maybe ready for ET contact, or who have heard of the YahYel, or maybe they've been channeling. I hope that this information is just really valuable to all of our viewers. And it certainly helped me understand the Gray Hybrid program. I had heard of it, but really did not know. So I feel that it was really valuable for me to understand this. Kind of just helps me understand the bigger picture of things and Earth too.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lauren. I appreciate even just having the opportunity to be here and love talking about this stuff, as you know. So
Yeah, me
thank
too.
you.
Well, I'm sure we'll have another episode at this rate.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you, Beth.